Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So, as we see, they're calling it a 6.9. Just give it that 1 point, right? The 0.1. Just make it a 7.0.
Yeah, they just gotta be annoying like that.
Well, we know the USGS, the downgrading
Yes,
service, BS, yeah. All these acronyms we have and we use. So, another big quake. This one is north of Port Alry in Vanuatu. They were concerned also about possibility of some tsunami waves incoming. You know, there's been a lot of big quakes recently. A lot of strange ones too in some areas. Like I just noticed this one over Peabody, Massachusetts. Sure, it's only a 1.3, but still curious. And we have a 2.1 in Dyersburg, Tennessee, and we have a 2.1 over in Oak Ridge, Tennessee area as well. Some activity down there by the New Madrid, Texas, and New Mexico. Well, there's a lot of fracking going on for sure. And we see the West is always busy when it comes to that. There was a 4.1 over here in Hawaii as well, so a slightly larger one. Talking about quakes, the death toll is almost 2,000 now in Haiti. 1,951, 41 people that they have confirmed due to whatever that quake was, whether it was 7.2 or some have said it was 7.6 even. It was a big one. And we expected it to be, unfortunately, in the thousands. And so that is the case. And the earthquake was followed by tropical depression, Grace, just days later, which hindered search and rescue operations. And still, our prayers go out to everybody down there. It's still an ongoing thing down there. It's going to take a long time to recover. They didn't really recover since the 2010 quake, which claimed 250 to 300,000 people.
Yeah, they didn't even have a chance to get a breather, really.
And we have Grace, well, now a hurricane. She's strengthening and threatening a landfall as either a Category 1 or 2 hurricane in the beautiful resort area of Cancun, Cozumel. Gorgeous area, absolutely beautiful. Been basically going over the Cayman Islands, which is also gorgeous. In the Cayman Islands, there's this place called Stingray City. They take you in a boat about 12 miles offshore, and they just throw the anchor down about 12 miles offshore from the island. And they say, jump overboard. And you jump overboard and you think you're going to go all the way down. Nope, it's only waist high, 12 miles out there. And there's tons of stingrays that come up to you. And, you know, they can be dangerous, as we now realize after the death of Steve Irwin. You remember Steve Irwin?
That was really sad.
That was super sad. But it's so cool. So I've actually had like a 5 or 6 foot across stingray in my arms. And at that time, I didn't realize that I could actually hurt you, as nobody showed any fear. But it was really cool. It was really fun. They have this rubbery skin. But anyway, Grace, now, this is definitely going to be an issue for Mexico, as she's going to make a landfall somewhere in the Yucatan, probably as a Category 1 or 2, come out the other side, probably as a tropical storm, and then regain strength to a Category 1, or we'll see. Because again, in these times with the artificial flavoring, anything could happen. And you could see the cone. There was a couple of spaghetti models that were showing a lot closer to, say, Brownsville area, but not hitting Brownsville, but still coming in the Mexican side. So most definitely we will have to watch Grace as things are starting to heat up over there. Record rainfall causes flash floods and burn areas of Flagstaff, another one of our favorite areas in the country. Flagstaff's a beautiful place, love it. Basically 3 inches of rain in an hour. And, you know, this is where you had the wildfires come through, burn areas. That's not a good combo because, you know, there's nothing to hold it in place, and you get these mudslides and nasty rivers of mud that can be very dangerous. Remember, it seems like just yesterday we were in this area.
I know, doesn't it? It wasn't very long ago at all.
No. Again, one of our favorite spots. Waterspout comes ashore, rips through buildings in southern Russia. As you see this guy watching from the beach. And this swirled ashore and ripped through a small building in Novorossiysk, Novorossiysk, yes, southern Russia. There's video, definitely looks ominous to say the least. And here you got over a meter of snow in 24 hours. And this is the Southern Alps in New Zealand. So all the extremes continue to get even more extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And we listen to this live while Americans are trapped in Afghanistan under the Taliban control. JB is taking digs at governors such as, well, the governors of Florida and Texas for banning mask mandates in school, as the number of people across the country is around 70% that have, done it. We're just going to say that.
Mm-hmm.
70%, and they're looking for 100 is what it really does feel like, is they're looking for 100.
That was a really hard watch to watch and listen to that. It was just difficult.
Yeah, and so one of the things that he said, because I think it was Governor Abbott in Texas that said, or was it DeSantis now? I think it was Governor Abbott, but gosh, they've been taking a similar tract, was talking about certain professionals that, if they don't go ahead with the state's mandate, they could be docked pay. And so what he was saying is, don't worry, the federal government will pick that up for you. Yeah, it's this war between the states and the federal government is pretty obvious. And, going back to videos I did in 2017, I think it was either August or September, and just shared that I felt that that was part of what was going to happen. I've gotten it from the guides going back a long time, many, many decades. Ultimately, the breakup of the US would lead to that Red Dawn scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see, everything is it's getting to be telegraphed, so to speak. Pretty obvious. First come, first serve. Americans warned of limited flights out of Kabul. U.S. Embassy cannot ensure safe passage to airport. Some people were shocked by the statements coming out from top military officials. And I just shocked and flabbergasted and almost incredulous. Like, I cannot believe what I'm hearing, type of thing. And, we're talking about this being the administration of 4-6. 4-5 had a lot of words about his view on what's happening. Interesting, too, to see that I think there's more people than ever that don't like anybody in politics. Anybody. Just as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think we are getting a little bit more of an awakening there. There can be the lesser of two evils, but you got to recognize there's puppet strings everywhere, guys.
Oh, everywhere. You can't ever eliminate that or feel safe in thinking somebody is a good person. No. They don't make it there because they're good people.
Oh, no, definitely not. And look at personal lives too. Delve deep, look at everything going on. And, when you really, I think a lot of people have a tendency, I want to put all my eggs in this basket. I have hope for this basket, so I'm going to put all my eggs in this basket. And then they get disappointed. So they get let down time and time again. I think we've been let down as a people, as a country, as a civilization across the globe so many times. It's like when you get picked up as a kid and you're dropped on your head for the 12th time, you're going to start getting mad at mom and pop.
Mm-hmm.
At some point. You're going to start questioning things.
Yep.
It's just a matter of time. As we see the Taliban reportedly fire on citizens in Jalalabad, killing 3 after protests tear down Islamic Standard raised Afghan flag. If you go back and look at photos of Iran in the 60s and early 70s, it looks like a Western country. It really, has that semblance. I mean, they were wearing the same stuff that people were wearing in UK or in the United States. It's totally changed now. And we also see the Taliban acquires U.S. military biometric devices that can identify Afghans who assisted coalition efforts. Well, yeah, they have got so much tech. I mean, it's been Christmas for them. And, as we were saying, 4-5 was talking about how that's all going to be handed over to the quote unquote enemies. And I recognize that there are people that start watching the channel, and this might be their very first, video that they've ever watched that we do, or maybe yesterday's or the day before. So we'll have people saying things every now and then like, you don't really believe, things that we're reading. No, of course not. As we've talked about, this is script. We've talked about scripture. We're looking at this as, what do they want us to believe? What are they telling us in order to set up the next domino that's going to fall, the next shoe that's going to fall? This is all part of a script that's been laid out for a long time. As somebody had pointed out, that I think it was August 15th was the 150th anniversary of the letter to Mazzini by Albert Pike. 100, or was it the 17th? It was one of those 2 days. It was the 15th. It was the 15th. Curious, because they're into numbers. They are super into numbers, and they're super into symbolism. And y'all, I mean, there was so many people that jumped on this. The pictures of this U.S. Air Force plane with everybody on the tarmac that makes you think that we're watching the movie 2012 or the movie Greenland, one of these disaster movies where it's like, I gotta get on that plane before the tsunami comes over. Well, look at the number of the plane. And again, kudos to the 2 or 3 dozen of you that were pointing that out. 1109. Read it in reverse. 9/11. Oh, symbolism.
They love doing stuff like that.
Whatever we see 3 3s, you know what's going on.
Oh yeah.
And we've talked about some famous 33rd degree Masons. Albert Pike's one. He's one of them. And he talked about back in 1871, 3 world wars, right? And he even talked about how they were going to happen, and they have broken down like that.
And wasn't there something about the day that he wrote about that and the day that this happened?
Well, yeah, that's what we're saying. It was 150 years.
Right.
Pretty much. It was almost 150 years to the exact day.
To the exact day, yeah.
So is this something that's a trigger to what he was talking about with that third conflagration to come?
Thanks.
And when you think about it, there's certain elite families, Red Shields, ROTH, Childs, for instance, that had key parts in this. Now, not just because they're one of the top banking families for several hundred years in the world, but who was all over the Balfour Declaration that was paving the way for Israel to be reborn after over 1900 years of not existing. And in many people's eyes, again, this is how scripture is used to precondition us, so we automatically think, well, it's got to be the will of God. Was it the will of God, or was it the will of a Red Shield? Because they're the ones that manifested this. And then, as we've said too, go back to look at these famous 33rd degree Masons. Well, then you have people that are creationists. They only believe in creation. They believe literally the earth is, 6,000 years old or thereabouts, was literally created in 6 days. They don't care about any science. Well, science is corrupt. And boy, we hear an awful lot about science these days. And then we recognize who funds the studies. And we recognize years later that, oh, by the way, that data was totally wrong consistently. So yeah, you can't trust science. But at the same time, I don't think the earth was created in just 6 days. And I don't think the earth is 6,000 years old. I think if anything, it's probably older than we think. For sure, it's been inhabited way longer than we are told by intelligent beings. And so then we look to evolution, and people automatically think, well, evolution, that's, you know, I don't believe in evolution. I don't trust Charles Darwin. Well, don't trust Charles Darwin. Darwinian evolution could be very, very wrong, from the fact that, what about the Rh negative blood factor? Where did that come from? There's no answers. There's no answers for that. So, did we come straight out from apes, as Darwin was saying? And Darwin painted a not too rosy picture. It's survival of the fittest, kill or be killed, eat or be eaten. He's a 33rd degree Mason. He's in the same group with all these other ones. And same thing with the founders of Jehovah's Witnesses and the founders of the Mormon Church. They were both 33rd degree Masons too, as have been several presidents, as well as, so many presidents have been part of all these secret societies. And we look at the top, industrial moguls, say, of the early 20th century, they're all intertwined. And look at these companies that even committed atrocities, such as IGFARBEN, and the families that were tied to that company. You guys have heard of Zyklon B, right? IG Farben produced it. Did you know that a certain POPE was a salesperson for that company? And 2 presidents had ties and investment in that company. And one of them happened to be in power when this number happened, 9011. All coinkydinks. Yeah, sure. Russian anti-submarine warfare destroyer enters Mediterranean. So, it just keeps amping up everywhere we look. It's just a matter of one oops, and everything could be just taken to a totally different level. Fire alarms go off at a nuclear power plant in Japan. And no leakage of radioactive material outside the plant has been confirmed. But what's interesting is the utility alerted a local fire station after a worker confirms smoke. However, an on-site inspection conducted by fire authorities led to the conclusion that there wasn't a fire. Alarms went off on the second and third floors of a 4-story building with 2 underground levels, according to utility. On Thursday, plant reported a fire which smoke emanated from electrical wires on its premises. This plant, the Hamoka plant, has suspended its operations since May of 2011, 2 months after the massive earthquake and tsunami that triggered Fukushima, due to safety concerns. So weird is the question, no? What are they covering up? And we have family members that are in the Phoenix area, and had mentioned what we thought about that, and I had said that my biggest concern, besides water, hot temperatures that are unlivable if there's no AC. Phoenix is an oven in June, July, August, September, and if we're in a world without AC, it's going to be tough to live in Phoenix. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because of those drones that were over the nuclear power plant to the west of there that could be a target by certain sleepy cellular agents.
Right.
And so that's why I wouldn't be crazy about that area. Spoils of war, not to mention, everything that's going on with Lake Mead now, water emergency, lowest, levels there since the Dust Bowl era. And this is, many of you guys have spoken about this in the comments, and it's true. This is huge. The opiates that are in Afghanistan, well, more than anywhere, as you see the poppy fields, more than anywhere on the globe. And this was really curious. And in the course of the last 19 years following US-NATO October 2001 invasion, there's been a surge in Afghan opium production. Wait a minute. Since The US and NATO went in, there's been a surge in production? Why, wouldn't they be just burning all these fields?
They're protecting them, of course. We got to protect the flowers.
In turn, the number of heroin addicts in the US increased dramatically.
Hmm.
Now, this is Southfront, who's very honest, I've found to be very honest. Is there a relationship? There were 189,000 heroin users in the US in 2001, before the invasion. By 2016, that number went up to 4,500,000. 2.5 million heroin addicts, 2 million casual users. In 2020, at the height of the crisis, deaths from opioids and drug addictions increased threefold. Threefold. And so they come to their conclusion. And it's highlighted right here. I didn't say that. It's just their conclusion. By the way, secret terrorist watch list, 1.9 million records exposed on the internet. Don't worry, you're safe. Your government has your data. We know where to securely store it. You can trust us, or you can trust USA. Well, yeah, this got basically heisted. So if your data was in there, it got heisted. The terrorist screening center dataset publicly exposed. There's an awful lot of this going on right now. This is all just, this is like the boxers or the MMA in this world now. Either way, boxing, I guess, is still fairly popular. They're in the ring, and so far nobody's really thrown a punch. They're just fainting, but they're getting ready. They're feeling out. They're devising a plan on how to proceed, basically. U.S. officials in Germany hit by Havana syndrome. Remember this? This is that mysterious syndrome that many diplomats have come down with. It started in Cuba, but it's hit more than one location. Mysterious symptoms. And what's causing it? Well, it's thought that it's some sort of warfare, some sort of weaponry that is secret, at least has not been publicly acknowledged, but most definitely seems to be getting tried out on targeted. In this case, we're talking about officials. At least 2 U.S. officials stationed in Germany sought medical treatment after developing symptoms of the mysterious health complaint known as Havana syndrome. The symptoms, which include nausea, severe headaches, ear pain, fatigue, insomnia, sluggishness. That sounds like most of the people around the globe at this point in time. Began to emerge in recent months, and some victims were left unable to work. These are the first cases to be reported in a NATO country that holds U.S. troops and nuclear weapons. Very similar to what's happened in other countries. So testing out of some sort of new weapon, some sort of maybe vibrational or, wavelength warfare, so to speak. Wonder if it has anything to do with certain towers and other things that we see around, not just towers, but think about it. Think about, all the satellites that Mr. Musk has thrown up into orbit. And I remember, I think was at the end of 2017 or 2018. It was like in December, there was this mad rush of everybody just shooting up all these satellites, top secret missions up into the sky. And it happened right when everybody was going down to Antarctica. They had the Pope go to Antarctica. They had the head of the Eastern Orthodox Church go to Antarctica. Gosh, was that even 2016?
Yeah, I think it was 2016.
I think it was. It was 2016.
Yeah.
So, what's up there in space? And here you see fears China's huge solar panel space station could burn up the Earth. It was aimed the wrong way. They have an enormous new solar power space station that they are putting together. So can it be weaponized? Could it be turned and actually fry a city? Well, there's fears of that. They want to basically be able to generate enough energy to light up a city by 2049. And a lot of times these dates, they give us a date and they already have it.
Yeah.
Is the bottom line, or it's been around for 40 years. It just hasn't been, put out in the open. And China port congestion is worsening as ships are diverted away from Ningbo. And this is all adding to rising shipping costs, rising, well, inflation is soaring. We just did another shopping. I dragged Cindy because we've gotten too much info from the Galactics, and the last 3 times they've really made it sound like things are very, very close. And we could see the writings on the wall for the 30% that are not like the 70%, if you guys know what I mean. And we're intent on staying in the minority, no matter what happens. So we went out and stocked up again. And, we're very, very well, we're making our plans. We're doing everything we can to be as self-sufficient as possible. We with rationing, we probably could live without going out of the house for maybe a year or two anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Probably. I mean, it wouldn't be the most comfortable thing. Taste buds might be lacking a little bit, but we could do it.
Yeah, I mean, for the 4 of us, I think we could do that. Semi comfortably.
Yeah, there's plenty of food, and
And that means making our own dog food too.
Yeah, it means making our own dog food. One of the things I might bring up to you guys too is like when it comes to like dog food, we had a whole bunch stocked up. It's so moist where we are. Even in containers that are semi-airtight, they were still getting mold. So I had to throw out, unfortunately, a lot. I mean, we didn't vacuum seal it. I mean, it was like 200 pounds of dog food. But I've gone back to making dog food from scratch, which is way healthier. Dogs love it a lot better. I get to add things like turmeric to it and maca and a whole bunch of other real healthy stuff to it for the dogs. I bought recently 20 pounds of chia seeds, organic chia seeds. Chia is great. It's so good for you, all the healthy essential fatty acids. Besides having, I know we have triple digit pounds of lentils, rice, beans of each, so being again that we don't eat a ton for the 4 of us, and we're talking about maybe a 12-pound sassy, 60-pound Zeke, and Cindy and myself, yeah, we could probably get by at least a year, but probably more. Yeah. And we do have some stuff from places like Patriot Supply, which I don't really intend on eating in case of an absolute emergency, because you got to look at the labels. And we inherited that from friends. We were gifted some of those things from friends that were like, here, take some. I got tons. And, a lot of it in there, when you look at the food list, is stuff I wouldn't necessarily eat. We wouldn't eat anything with high fructose corn syrup unless we're starving to death. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But we do have a lot of seeds, and now we'll be putting up the greenhouse as a storm is rolling in. That's my only concern is storms and wind. And hopefully the greenhouse will make it, because we can't afford a glass greenhouse or one that's real solid and sturdy. So it's going to be one that is kind of like that plastic dome, but we'll try to beef it up. We have seen people that have beefed them up where they've made it through pretty good storms intact. Plus, where we are, the winds shouldn't hit it directly that strong at all, as it will be basically surrounded by fencing and buildings. So should be good. And yes, the soaring cost of food is forcing families to scrimp at the dinner table big time. All across the globe, prices are rising. Found this interesting. You could see the prices of oils actually have risen the most, and I'll thumbs that up as we ended up spending basically 30% more for the same organic coconut oil that we did 9 months earlier. 30% increase. Truly, yeah. Costs are going up. If you are a meat eater and you want to go get yourself a nice roast beef, it's probably going to cost you $30, $40. I remember the old prices not too long ago, yeah, where you could get a decent piece like that for maybe under $10.
Mm-hmm.
Those days are long gone. Everything is going up. Things are getting tough. And there's stories in here. This is out of Bloomberg, where some people are just going to the store and they're just kind of negotiating. Sometimes they're actually just begging, please, please, can you do better? Can you mark this down? Because literally the family's not going to be able to really have enough food. It's sad, but we've known this is what's coming. Many of us have known this is coming for 30 years or more. Um, and still, when you watch this happen in front of you, it's still kind of shocking, even though you know it's coming, even though you might be prepared.
Well, you have this cognitive dissonance that's been trained into us through all the media, through all the commercials, through vibrations that come out of the TV. It's like something that's been entrained in the system to have that distance so that you don't, take it too seriously.
So I always find it interesting, like Denisovans. Now that's a word most of us have probably heard. It's a certain type of human that walked the planet that doesn't walk it now in and of itself, but some of its DNA is in some of us. And we find an indigenous Filipino group has the highest known Denisovan ancestry. When we talk about Neanderthals, most of us growing up had heard about that for, since we were kids. And we know the Basque people, for instance, of the Iberian Peninsula have very high Neanderthal percentages. It's just fascinating to me to see all this, because what we have gotten from the galactics is, that the Earth was very, very much kind of a galactic hub. There were a lot of beings here that were not from here. And when you get down to it, Homo sapiens sapiens, well, this current version might have been tweaked on this planet, but all of us have, we all have starseed DNA
Mm-hmm.
from other places, because, when you look to certain types, again, you have your Nordic types, which we associate with the Pleiadians, for instance. And many people have brought up too the question of, well, why when I look at Krishna, he's depicted as being blue? Because he was.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of it was he was. He wasn't from here, basically. And again, well, we've gotten that even like Yeshua has Pleiadian and Arcturian lineage. That's something that people will be becoming more and more familiar with as time goes on,
Mm-hmm.
and just recognizing it, especially when we start to see some beings not from Earth out in the open, which is going to happen. So I always found this very, very fascinating. And here we have an article that's talking about black hole megastructures may be powering alien civilizations. And they talk about Dyson spheres. Why is there a Dyson sphere out in front of the Vatican? What are they trying to acknowledge? Well, put it right out there. This extraterrestrial alien technology. And again, we are not indigenous to the earth ultimately. What was here on the earth was more like the Nagas before any humanoid beings were here. And the Nagas are more of a reptilian serpentine race, which is alluded to, in scripture and many other places. It's a common theme all across the globe. It's recognized that there are these serpentine, very wise, powerful beings that are to be dealt with very cautiously, that live in the earth,
Mm-hmm.
or under the seas. And so, yeah, so this is what scientists are saying, that these might be used to power alien civilizations. Dyson spheres encompassing around black holes could yield up to 1 million times more energy than those built around stars. So, trickle disclosure going on here.
A lot too. And it's been out there in the open for a really long time. It's just more and more people are discovering it. Thank goodness, because then they tell their neighbors tell their neighbors. And it's a slow spread, but it's happening.
And as we move through these times, and again, we are in for probably the roughest of these times, starting in the very near future. Through probably 2025, it's going to be really, really tough. This is the tough period ahead. And then it should start to slowly get better. And we do feel that the power structure will be failing by the time we get to 2030. And again, there's a reason why they have certain AGENDAs with these numbers. 2021 most certainly has been a year that has had major AGENDA involved in it. We have seen things escalate like you've never seen them escalate in the past.
Yeah, look at them now.
Look at everything that's going on right now. It's incredible. But 2030, that's kind of like where you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so we have to, basically weather the storm as the storm is rolling in quite literally right now as we do this. Thank you guys for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. If you need to make an appointment, it's evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com or EEARTS@protonmail.com. Thank you guys also that have been checking out and loving medicinal foods. There's a link at the top of every video, and it's a great bunch of people there that are trying to promote consciousness and trying to help people to ascend in these times. As they keep trying to throw lead weights around our legs, we'll keep trying to get rid of those lead weights.
Yep.
God bless and namaste.
Namaste.